In this video, here's what we'll cover: what a Section 14 order actually is, how police checks work in Australia, does a Section 14 show up, the general answer, the nuances, and working with children checks, the role of a psychological report. If you have been through the Section 14 process, or you are thinking about it, there is one question that tends to keep people awake at night. Will this follow me around? Will it show up when I apply for a job, or try to volunteer, or renew a license? It is a completely understandable worry, and it deserves a clear, calm answer. So let me set out what I can, as general information. Please keep in mind that I am a psychologist, not a lawyer, and this is education, not legal advice. Your own circumstances may be different, and for anything specific you should always speak with a qualified lawyer. Let me start with what a Section 14 order actually is. Section 14 sits inside the Mental Health and Cognitive Impairment Forensic Provisions Act, which is New South Wales legislation from 2020. It is what we call a diversion provision in the local court. It lets a magistrate steer a person away from the ordinary criminal path when that person has, or had at the time of the alleged offence, a mental health impairment or a cognitive impairment, or both. Here is the key part. When a magistrate makes a Section 14 order, the charge is dismissed. Instead of a criminal penalty, the person is usually directed into treatment or support. The magistrate can set conditions, and for up to a year they can call the person back to court if they do not follow their plan. But there is no conviction, and there is no finding of guilt. That distinction matters enormously, and I will come back to it. Now, how do police checks work in Australia? To know whether something shows up, you first need to know what a check is actually looking at. The most common one is the National Police Check, or NPC, coordinated by the Australian Criminal Intelligence Commission. It searches criminal history records across every state and territory, and it returns what is called a disclosable court outcome. A disclosable court outcome generally means your convictions, and in some states and for some purposes a finding of guilt without a conviction, and any court matters still pending. What it generally does not include is charges that were dismissed, matters withdrawn before a court decided anything, and your medical or health information. So a standard police check is really a record of criminal outcomes, not a record of everything that has ever happened. That brings me to the question everyone actually asks: does a Section 14 show up on a police check? The general answer, for a standard NPC, is no, because a Section 14 dismisses the charge. With no finding of guilt and no conviction, there simply is no disclosable court outcome of the kind that appears on that check. A dismissed charge is not a conviction. It is not a finding of guilt. It does not form part of your criminal record the way a conviction does. This is where the difference between Section 14 and Section 10 becomes really useful to understand. Under a Section 10, the court does find you guilty. It just chooses not to record a conviction. That finding of guilt can, depending on the state and the purpose of the check, appear on some background checks. A Section 14 involves no finding of guilt at all, which is generally a cleaner outcome on paper. But I want to be honest about the nuances, because reassurance without accuracy helps no one. Not appearing on a police check is not the same as not existing anywhere. When a person is charged, that charge is logged in court and police administrative systems, and that administrative record may still sit there even after the charge is dismissed. Police conducting an authorized investigation can sometimes see a broader set of records than a standard check shows. And for certain specialized processes, like some security clearances or law enforcement roles, a wider check may look at prior charges even when they were dismissed. The Working with Children check deserves its own caution. In New South Wales it is run by the Office of the Children's Guardian, and it asks a different question altogether. It is assessing whether a person poses an unacceptable risk to children, so it can consider a broader range of information than a standard check, sometimes including charges that did not lead to a conviction. If you work, or hope to work, in any role involving children, please get specific legal advice about how a Section 14 matter might be assessed there. Do not rely on a general article for that. Finally, the role of a psychological report. A Section 14 order does not happen automatically. Someone has to apply, and a magistrate has to be persuaded. In practice, A comprehensive psychological or psychiatric report is central to almost every successful application. A strong report establishes a diagnosis using proper clinical assessment, explains how the impairment connects to the alleged behavior, proposes a realistic and specific treatment plan, and addresses community safety honestly. And it has to be written in plain language a magistrate can act on. So if any of this is weighing on you, please know the general position is often more reassuring than people fear, and that support is available at Potentialz Unlimited in Bella Vista. We prepare Section 14 reports for the local court. You can read the full guide, or get in touch, using the links below. Before you go, here's a quick recap of what we covered. What a Section 14 order actually is. How police checks work in Australia. Does a Section 14 show up? The general answer. The nuances, and working with children checks. The role of a psychological report.